UGC minor project on women's writing in 2015. With 15 years of teaching experience in higher education, she has to her credit many papers being published in reputed journals. She has presented papers in national and international levels. So, madam, I request you to take forward the session, today's session.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you so much. And I welcome you all, to all the members, to this Sunday Sahityik Satsang that we are observing today on 20th of November 2022 by the forum called iSPELL, Indigenous Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature. And for today's session, the 115th session that we will be conducting today, the Sunday Sahityik Satsang, indeed a long journey in fact. Today we'll be taking up, we will be, focusing on a topic, Shakespearean performances in colonial Assam, from stage to stage. And for the purpose, to enlighten us with the given topic, we have with us our speaker, Dr. Sankar Mazumder, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Assam University. I would like to introduce our speaker to all the members and some informations regarding him as well. Dr. Sankar Mazumder has joined his alma mater in 2008 after teaching for 4 years in the Department of English, Lamding College, Assam. He has done his PhD from Guwahati University and his thesis is titled Political Theatre in Kolkata, Bertolt Brecht in Context. He has specialized in drama, theatre and performance studies, literature in English from India's Northeast, partition and issues of migration in Eastern India. He has published research journals, he has published research articles in various reputed journals enlisted with UGC and CARE. He has also edited books called Anthology of American Poetry in 2009 and Kaleidoscope in 2018. And I would like to now switch over to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sankar Mazumder, and to speak on the given topic. To talk about how, he will be speaking as far as I could grasp from the, topic as it is given, Shakespearean's performances in colonial Assam. The different approaches that has influenced a variety of Shakespeare's production style and how it has been localized, improved or reformed in very many ways. Now I would like to request Sankar Mazumder sir to take over the stage and put up his lecture. Sankar sir, can you hear me?
Unmute yourself, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Shweta. I'm good. I have been traveling all these last 10-12 days and just 1 hour back I reached home. And while traveling only, you came up with this proposal and I thought that it would be nice to be introduced to the platform of iSPELL. I'm very grateful and thankful to all of you for giving me this opportunity. And I believe that iSPELL is doing wonderful work because this is what turns out to be the 115th satsang that I'm told. So, you have already covered a substantial part of your journey and I'm pretty confident that it will go on. Now, before introducing the topic for the day, this is one particular issue about which I have written in a couple of places. And because basically I am a drama theater person, so this was one of the areas which interested me. Though there is not much of writing which is available on this particular area, one problematic thing is that a lot of reviews on the productions that might have existed at a particular point of time. Assamese productions of Shakespeare's adaptation and translation, the experiences of the playwrights, experiences of the actors, or some particular article or review that might have been published at a particular point of time. Because in this part of the world, we are never known for cataloging things or preserving things in a very meticulous manner. So many of these things are actually lost. One of the persons that I know, one great academician, Professor Pona Mohanto from Dibrugarh University, he has written a great deal on this, and some of this is available in printed form. Professor Amoresh Dotto has also written in some certain places, but it is again unfortunate that Professor Dotto's articles have never been published in a very serialized manner. So either people who know him or knew him directly, they could gather some materials from him. So I mean, this still remains a gray area in which a lot of work needs to be done. So with this very minimum background, let me I will ask for your permission to start today's session. I will basically take, say, around 15 to 20 minutes time to finish presenting my paper, and then I will put it across to Shweta and the master of ceremony or the mistress of ceremony for today's session. So let's begin then. There is a question with which I really want to begin, and this question does not belong to me. It's not me who is asking this question, but in generally there is a question. Why should we assume that intercultural transfer is primarily a politically based one-way phenomenon? Intercultural because Shakespeare, as we know, he came from the West, and then during the course of last 300 or 400 years in India, Shakespeare became a really very important phenomenon in popular cultural studies as well as in literature studies. So this intercultural transfer, this particular, the reason why Shakespeare was taken to different corners of the world, including different parts of the subcontinent. I mean, remotest part of the subcontinent, some place like Assam during the early 19th century. What actually was the reason? These are the things that we would like to understand in the next 10-15 minutes of my presentation. And then there is an added issue, is that whether we could, the Assamese theater practitioners, the Assamese spectators, whether from this very remote region of Northeast India, we could contribute something to Shakespeare studies. This is possibly, these are the two-way process. This is the dialogue which I would like to unveil. During the last few years, we have witnessed a great resurgence of articles delineating the influence of Shakespeare in the growth and development of modern theatre in India. The most noteworthy among which are Poonam Trivedi's India's Shakespeare, Translation, Interpretation and Performance, a book which was published in 2006. Catherine Hansen's investigation into Parsi theatre, titled as The Parsi Theatre, Its Origin and Development, book was published in 2005. Shormishta Panja and Babli Moitro edited Performing Shakespeare in India, which was published in 2016. And Poonam Trivedi and Minami Rayut's book titled Replaying Shakespeare in Asia, which was published in 2010. So it is always useful to begin with a survey of literature, because these are the books which have kind of, there are other books of course, but these are the books which have primarily set the tone for Shakespeare studies, especially the popular performative aspect of it in the Indian subcontinent or in this parts of Asia during last 20-25 years. Most of these investigations attempt a historical mapping of the influence of Shakespeare's plays on the native intelligentsia, especially in a colonial climate charged with admiration for the bard, for Shakespeare. Most of these accounts invariably indicate the intent of colonizers to make use of Shakespeare as a tool for education, quote unquote. This is a phrase which I borrow from Erin B. Mee. She has written a very beautiful book on modern Indian theatre, especially the roots theatre movement. Prominent theatre historian Bengali theatre historian Sushil Mukherjee once have written, when the English came to Calcutta, they brought with them the plays of Shakespeare. Early in the 19th century, Shakespeare was a subject of study in the Hindu college. Much before that, Shakespeare plays had begun to be staged in the theatres that the local Englishmen had set up in the city for their spectators. I mean, I will just borrow a second, if you don't mind. I'm very sorry. Now let us begin once again. Entertainment and relaxation. The names of David Garrick. Shweta, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. The names of David Garrick, the great 18th century Shakespearean actor, as it was very well known in England, was familiar among the Calcutta theatre spectators also. Shakespeare's plays were offered as a prized object of colonial capital for orienting the natives into the superior culture of the master race. These plays were performed in Western playhouses like Sahasusi Theatre in Kolkata or Calcutta, and Elphinstone Dramatic Club, some high-end, of course, exclusively British or exclusively white entertainment clubs in Bombay, as well as taught in educational institutions like the Hindu College or Elphinstone College in Bombay, Hindu College in Kolkata and Elphinstone College in Bombay. And within a very short period of time, these plays attained immediate popularity, not because of their quote-unquote histrionic abilities only, but also because of their quote-unquote literary merit. And I'm quoting Erin B. Me. S.K. Bhattacharya corroborates the facts by highlighting some of the points in an article titled Shakespeare and Bengali Theatre. I will explain within next 2 to 3 minutes as to why I have started with Bengali theatre. Now let us go back to what S.K. Bhattacharya says. He says, while the English playhouses by their production of English, especially Shakespeare's plays, created an appetite for theatrical performances, the foundation of the Hindu College in 1816 and the teaching of Shakespeare by eminent teachers like Richardson created a sensation in the minds of the students. The modern intelligentsia of Bengal, a literary taste for drama as such, and taught them not only how to appreciate Shakespeare criticism, but also to recite and act scenes from Shakespeare's plays. So, I mean, Shakespeare instantly became a very prized object, a very popular phenomenon in the Western type education institutions in colonial cities. Now, by the beginning of 19th century, Shakespeare was already being performed, and Shakespearean texts were being taught in high-end, very modern Western type educational institutions, as well as in British theatre halls, exclusively English or white theatre gatherings in the colonial cities. One needs to understand that only in 1826, actually Britishers arrived in the northeast, and it took another 20-30 years for the first generation of Assamese intelligentsia to rise up to this particular occasion. And then by the end of the 19th century, we will find that many of these first generation of Assamese intellectuals, they were going towards Kolkata for attaining higher education. It is primarily people like Lakshminath Bejbarua and others. It is they who will be inspired by Shakespeare's plays, and they will bring back Shakespeare to Northeast. And this will be clearer as I progress through this particular paper. Shakespeare's plays occupied a significant spot in the curriculum of Cotton College from the year of its establishment, that is 1901. Now we have come to Northeast, we have come to Guwahati city, Cotton College. Taking a cue from the practice of Western education institutions in Calcutta, students of Cotton College began rehearsing and performing Shakespearean plays within a few years of its establishment. Available accounts reflect that performances of Shakespearean plays by the students of Cotton College generated a lot of enthusiasm among the local intelligentsia. G.C. Bordoloi recounts the memory of an enactment of Merchant of Venice in Cotton College premises, wherein he writes, Principal Sadmarson himself coached us, and I'm quoting G.C. Bordoloi, he says, Principal Sadmarson himself coached us, did not miss a single rehearsal, he trained us so well that the audiences that included all the English residents of the town, that is Guwahati town, appreciated the show. This is an account which we find in a book, Assamese book that has been written by Professor Pona Mohanta. After another couple of decades, appeared the first significant translations of Shakespeare's plays in Assamese. So after this very interesting performance about which we have talked, which have taken place as it seems in the Cotton College premises, it took another 2 decades, another 20 to 25 years for Shakespeare to have appeared in Assamese translation. Padmadhar Choliha's Amor Lila, an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, appeared in 1919, followed by Nobin Chandra Bordoloi's adaptation of Taming of the Shrew, which was titled as Donduri Daman, and King Lear as Vishado Kahini in 1932. So these are the first generation translators and works of translation from Shakespeare's plays. Otul Chandra Hazarika's Oshru Tirtha, which was published in 1948, and Bonij Kaur from Merchant of Venice, appeared in 1950, are amongst the finest adaptations of Shakespearean plays in Assamese. Most of these were indigenous adaptations with localized settings rather than good translations from the original, primarily because of the underlying assumption that the Assamese spectators won't be able to relish an quote-unquote unadulterated and quote-unquote authentic Shakespeare. So these translators, they have taken a lot of liberties in their translation because they thought that common Assamese spectators or common Assamese readers who are not acquainted with Shakespeare's plays in the first hand, they will not be able to understand the sophistications of Shakespeare's language. So while in translation, they try to intervene, or they try to make Shakespeare's language more accessible to the commoners. Few other translators and adaptations have vanished from public gaze because of the non-availability of the manuscript. So that is something about which I have pointed out in the beginning. Many of these translations of Shakespeare's texts, the first generation reviews of Shakespeare's performances in Assam, they are no longer available with us because the academicians or the theater enthusiasts in this part of the world, they have not taken care to preserve those. The history of Shakespearean production in Assamese began in 19th century. On the evening of 25th August 1888, members of Asamiya Bhasha Unnoti Sadhani Samiti, a literary organization of Assamese students in Kolkata, almost all these Assamese students, these are the first generation migrants to Kolkata for higher education. And they came together, they formed an association which is called Asamiya Bhasha Unnoti Sadhani Samiti. They created a club, it's a literary cultural club, and they decided to perform a Shakespearean play. The play turned out to be Brahmarango, an adaptation of William Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors. It was not only the first performance of a Shakespearean play in Assamese, but also possibly the earliest production of a modern Assamese play, beyond Assam. This play was performed in Kolkata. The adaptation of Brahmarango was a collaborative project in which 4 translators contributed. one of the most notable of these translators were Gunjanon Borua. Noted Assamese literature, Lokinath Bejborua translated a few songs in this particular production. And he mentions this particular fact in his autobiography, Lakshminath Bejborua's autobiography. He mentions this particular fact. He also, Lakshminath Bejborua also mentions the fact that Shibram Bordoloi, another noted intellectual, Assamese young person, who was in Kolkata at that point of time, he suggested the Sanskritized title of the play, Brahmarango. The title of the play was suggested by someone called Shibram Bordoloi. Most of these artists associated with the production, including the translators, are students of Hindu College and other prominent educational institutions of Kolkata. The students of Hindu College were initiated into the dramatic genius of William Shakespeare by the likes of legendary teachers, professors David Lister Richardson, a very notable English teacher who have vitally contributed to the academic scenario in Hindu College. He joined this particular college in 1836 as a professor of English literature. Richardson used to inspire his students to recite and act passages from plays like Hamlet, King John, King Henry, Midsummer Night's Dream, etc., etc. Lakshminath Bejborua also mentions that Charles Tawney, another teacher of English literature in that college, whom none could excel in the teaching of Shakespeare. So apart from Richardson, Lakshminath Bejborua also mentions another legendary teacher whose name is Charles Tawney. Recounting his experience of attending lectures of a teacher whom he identifies as Tawney, Bejborua writes in his memoir, More Jibanor Horon is the title of Bejborua's autobiography. He has mentioned a great deal about his experiences in Kolkata, about the atmosphere of drama performances and theatre performances inside the college and beyond the college. So Bejborua writes, and I quote, I myself thought of leaving behind some ageless treasure in Assamese literature by writing a few plays like these, So he was inspired to write plays like William Shakespeare, which the kind of attempts that we'll later see Bejborua making. Except the university classrooms, other chief sources of exposure to Shakespeare to Assamese theatre enthusiasts were the English playhouses in Calcutta. Lakshminath Bejborua mentions that he was in the habit of regularly frequenting the theatre halls, of which his most favorite was the Star Theatre, where he enjoyed the comic performances of a certain Mr. Chatterjee. I tried to identify who this Mr. Chatterjee might have been, but till date, I could not exactly find out which Chatterjee actually Lakshminath Bejborua is talking about in his autobiography titled More Jibanor Horon. His autobiography, the title has already been mentioned, is full of references to the vibrant performative culture that was there in Kolkata at that point of time. Elizabethan proscenium theatre was making its journey towards northeast, especially to Assam, where Onkiya Nat was the most popular and the most visible performative form at that point of time. And Elizabethan theatre started its journey towards Assam only on the shoulders of this first generation or the second generation expatriates who have gone to Kolkata in order to learn Western, to get educated in the Western educational system. Now, it would be obvious to us that Bengali theatre played a significant role in introducing Shakespeare to the Assamese intelligentsia, and nowhere it is more visible than in the youthful proclamation of Bejborua and some of his compatriots. Bengal's influence on Assamese Shakespeare can be deciphered in two important respects. A, the attempt of Assamese theatre enthusiasts to use Shakespearean translations and adaptations by Bengali playwrights as a model. So, because in Bengal, plays based on Shakespeare or adaptations and translations of Shakespeare has already been written and published. So the Assamese intellectuals and students and theatre enthusiasts, they took up those models from Bengal in order to write their own plays. And another important aspect, to write original Assamese plays by imitating Shakespearean or the Elizabethan model. The earliest Bengali adaptations of Shakespeare, like Horochandra Ghosh's Bhanumati Chittabilash and Charumukhi Chittohara, had a distinct impression on the praxis of Shakespearean translations and adaptations. Padmadhar Choliha's Amor Lila adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, and Durgeshwar Sharma's Chandravali, based on As You Like It, Nobin Chandra Bordoloi's Vishado Kahini adaptations of King Lear, Atul Chandra Hazarika's Ashrutirtha based on King Lear, and Bonji Kaur based on The Merchant of Venice are amongst the finest examples of Shakespeare adaptation in Assamese. Shweta, roughly how much time do I have? If I am audible, Shweta?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
How much time do I have?
Sir, there is no such time limit, but you can like go on.
I will finish within another next 5 minutes.
Okay, sir. Okay.
That Assamese translations of Shakespeare Assamese translators of Shakespeare were aware of the challenges involved in translating a foreign Shakespeare into a native tradition from the very beginning, is visible or will be obvious to us from the very beginning. And in fact, the very first translation of course, it was a collaborative project. The first Assamese translation of a Shakespeare's play, Comedy of Errors, as Brahmo Rango. In the preface to the play, the writers have written, and I believe that I should be quoting it in detail in order to understand the complexities involved in this process. The writers tell us that there are many difficulties in translating Shakespeare into Assamese. In the first place, Shakespeare's language and thought are so difficult that let alone a foreigner, even British scholars have not been able to determine their precise meaning. Besides, it is not easy to transfer the thought, customs, and behavior of an alien people to an adapted version. And so something of these has to be left out. While we have tried all our best to maintain the poet's thought and ideas without loss, we have sometimes been constrained to change even some ideas of the great poet in order to fit them into the changed background. We have been very careful to see that the poetic quality of the piece is not destroyed. Yet we do not dare to say that it is not strained, since we have undertaken to translate it. I have quoted this particular passage from a book authored by Professor Poonam Mohanto. I mean, this actually tells us a great deal about the complexities involved in translating a foreign text and then make it accessible or then make it popular to the native readers or spectators. And translating Shakespeare was a very difficult task, about which these translators have mentioned in great detail. In a recently published article titled Bideshi Natoker Ashomiya Roop Aru Moncha Bhinoy, it is the Assamese article, Assamese essay. It is an essay which has been written in Assamese tongue, and the title of the essay is Bideshi Natokor Ashomiya Roop Aru Moncha Bhinoy. An academician, a critic, has written, his name is Bhuban Borua, that Lakshminath Baijborua played the role of Niranjan from Mayapur, and Rajanikanto Bordoloi played the role of Sonali when this particular play, Brahmo Rango, was performed for the first time in Assam. And let me just conclude my brief presentation now. The impact of Shakespearean plays on Assamese theatre can be witnessed primarily in two respects. A limited and external influence, which is primarily perceivable in the translations, adaptations, and imitations of the dramatic performative texts. And B, a deeper and more subtler kind of influence, which is detectable on the thought process of Assamese dramatists. Whereas the first type of influence can be detected in the early translations and adaptations of Shakespeare, especially which appeared during the 19th century. The second which are subtler in nature, unfolded slowly with the passage of time. Assamese translations and adaptations of Shakespeare assumed a significant role in regional theatrical entertainment. From the early 20th century, Assamese theater enthusiasts began freely adapting and revising the original works of the bard. Padmadhar Chaliha and Atul Chandra Hazarika's translations from Shakespeare, which appeared at that time, are regarded to be the finest experimentations in Assamese. However, both of them have excelled in evolving an appropriate linguistic style, poetic expression, and richness, which approximates the finest translations of Shakespeare in any Indian language. One of the secrets behind the success of these two dramatists in Shakespeare translations remain in their attempt to emulate Girish Ghosh, the legendary thespian of Bengal of 19th century. Padmadhar Chaliha and Atul Chandra Hazarika openly acknowledged their gratitude or their indebtedness to Ghosh for showing them the model. Assamese Shakespeare came of age with Chaliha and Hazarika. The subsequent generations of Assamese theatre practitioners initiated a detailed exercise of altering, transforming, and appropriating Shakespeare and Shakespearean text according to the demands of the time and the region. This was the moment of arrival of an Oriental, quote unquote, Assamese Shakespeare, the flavor of which appeared remarkably transformed from the source text. Like other regional languages, Assamese Shakespeare from early 20th century was also essentially premised on hybridity, on a fusion of Eastern and Western techniques, and such transformations challenged, quote unquote, the status of Shakespeare as a maker of universal cultural value on the Indian stage, demonstrating the ease and the willingness of troops and players to adopt Shakespeare and nurture him within the prevalent traditions of Indian theatre. Unquote. This is something which I have borrowed from Panja, Sharmishta Panja. Such, quote unquote, native appropriation of Shakespearean thoughts through adaptation in Assamese can be interpreted as an attempt by the native theatre fraternity to celebrate the idea of cultural authority, quote unquote, cultural authority. And here, all the time, for the last 20 minutes or so, when I have mentioned native theatre or native theatrical fraternity, native spectators, I have primarily referred to the Bengali and Assamese theatre scenario. Assamese Shakespeare, finally we can say, Assamese Shakespeare experimenters reposed faith on adaptations rather than on literal and faithful translations, which eventually augmented the growth of a hybridized theatre in this particular region. So that is where I would like to end. Hope you have liked my presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us on the given topic and awareness and on Shakespeare's plays and so on, and how that has been carried out across the country as well as in the state of Assam in particular. And sir, I would just like to share, since this is the platform where I can share this opinion or the view, that just before the COVID, I mean 2019, our institution, our girls' college, we have a society called Bohemian Souls, a drama society. And the first performance that we selected was Macbeth, Shakespeare's play Macbeth, and Lady Macbeth's performance, that dialogues were adapted and localized into bringing about the Assamese culture. I mean, the costume, the dialogues, and so on. I mean, local Assamese flavor to bring about. And that was highly appreciated by students, teachers, everyone. So this is what I want to share before everybody else share their opinion regarding the same. That's true. He is a Herculean figure. When we are on stage, we can only think, most of the time we generally think about William Shakespeare. Who else can be better to begin with? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would also like to see who else. I mean, if I would like to request the participants, if they have any questions to share or any observations to be made, please. There is a question by Pushpa. Is Shakespeare difficult? Let me read out. Just a second. In one of your publications title, I'm skipping to that, I'm coming to something else, sir, please note down. In one of your publications title Assamese Shakespeare, Translation, Adaptation and Reception, you write, the impact of the Shakespearean plays in two respects: a limited and external influence, first on translations and adaptations, the second, a deeper and more subtle kind of influence on the thought process of Assamese dramatists. In this context, do you think or consider that the originality of Assamese plays and theatre has been diluted to accommodate Shakespeare simply because it is Shakespeare? Or if no, then where does the authentic Assamese theatre stand today? What is your opinion?
Should I reply to this?
I believe so. I believe so. Okay. Participants are expecting.
So, very, very, very interesting and very tough question. I'm not sure how much of this I can actually answer, and whatever answer I give, how much of that will be acceptable. We all are learning constantly. What I exactly meant by a limited and external influence is that the first generation Assamese theater practitioners, Assamese theater experimenters, as it happened in Bengal, in other parts of the subcontinent, they were primarily occupied in translating the language, the linguistic beauty, the poetic beauty of Shakespearean texts. You may also find the reflection of it in that 1888 collaborative translation of Shakespeare, which has been titled as Brahmarango. But as Shakespeare was more and more approachable, Shakespeare became more and more available because of this constant interaction of Assamese intellectuals with Calcutta's educational institutions and Calcutta's theatre. I believe it has given them the necessary insight or the necessary courage to go for bold experimentations within the Shakespearean, remaining within the Shakespearean ambit. Whatever Shakespeare has written and performed, made it available for performance in 16th century England, the 19th century or early 20th century Assamese theatre intellectuals felt that that could not be, or that need not be translated or transformed or transported as it is. So they were for experimentations. They made some certain experimentations in performance. Just few minutes back, someone told that when this year or a couple of years back, there was an experimentation. All over the world, these kinds of experimentations with the costume, with setting, this is going on, and which I believe that we have the right to do because surely the times are different. So with the passage of time, Shakespeare may not remain a holy relic which cannot be touched or which cannot be which cannot be transformed according to the demands of the time, which all over the world, this kind of an experimentation is going on in theatre. And coming to another part of this particular question, that whether Shakespeare has affected the authenticity of Assamese theatre practitioners, or if I could get that part correctly, before the arrival of Shakespeare in Assam, it was the Onkiyar, Nat and Bhavana kind of performances which predominated the theatre, and like most of the ancient theatre forms in India, these were the stages were open. The stages were open and spectators could sit on all the directions and they could watch the performances. The Elizabethan theatre or the proscenium theatre, which came to Indian subcontinent and then it spread to different parts of the region, it brought its own kind of style, it brought its own kind of rationale. And the first generation of Indian intellectuals, whether in Bengal or in other parts of India, including Assam, when they went to universities and they went to Western performances, they have particularly imbibed this particular technique, the proscenium technique, the Elizabethan technique, which was completely very different from the traditional theater techniques or traditional dramatic writing practices which existed in Northeast or which existed in Assam. So, I believe that they have been influenced, but whether this influence has helped them or whether this influence has actually helped in eradicating the existing practices, the existing styles that we have, this is something which I believe is a debatable issue. And one eventually will have to take sides. One may also enjoy the beauty of both the forms without necessarily taking any particular side. So this is how I look at it. Thank you. Hope, but then if there is something else, we can also talk about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I hope the participants agree. This is again a very problematic question. I mean, whether it
problematic, and that's why
dilutes.
it is interesting also.
Yes, yes, those questions, I mean, how to address, whether it dilutes or whether it's, I mean, enriches. That's the way how we take it.
I will only stick to one particular point as an individual, as a student of performing arts, theater, drama, and literature also, of course. So I will only stick to one particular point, that whether an adaptation or a translation is a good or bad, but any individual has the right to translate or adapt. It is only after adaptation and after translation, within that particular year, 10 years or 100 years after, that people will be forming their opinion whether this adaptation was a good adaptation, whether this translation was a good translation. But that should not restrict, that should not stop an individual, an academician or a theater enthusiast from translating or adapting.
Exactly, exactly. And moreover, it helps to reaching people across cultures, across countries, and so on. There will always be complications in, I mean, translation and adaptations will always have issues. But the best part is that it helps in reaching people, as many. Right. Otherwise, it would have been very restricted to particular region or culture. That is what I believe. But the best person who would be putting up his observation would be, we have with us our chairperson for today, Dr. Murali Krishnan sir, from Professor of English from Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi, Kerala. So I would like to request sir to put up his observations on the given topic, or whatever you have discussed, or whatever he has to, I mean, share with us. Over to you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Am I audible there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, my congratulations to Dr. Sankar Mazumder.
Hello, sir. Hello. Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. I was listening with intent. The reason is it's a new area which I should say, from the perspective of Assam. Somebody who is speaking from Kerala. We are all trying to find out what happens there for the last maybe 100 years or 150 years. As you said, it became popular maybe around 1850s. So we need to know what has happened to the text proposed by Shakespeare maybe 600 years back, and how far it has been adapted, translated. So many versions are possible now. So we are trying to find out, say, as you have suggested in the title, from page to stage. So we are finding out how far it has been successful, and how so far it has been educative, how far it has been inspirational to so many people around. Now, one thing that I have found with Shakespeare is that there is this very important aspect called the openness of the text. Now, compared to maybe if you read Ionesco, if you read Bernard Shaw, now they are all very insisting, like regarding the shape, structure, and all even the arrangement of the stage. But whereas the theme of Shakespeare, whereas the arrangement of stage is concerned, the characters, now it is easily adaptable to the conditions. Maybe if it is Assam, maybe it is Kerala, or maybe any Japan, or maybe any other place as well. So there are only few stage directions, and so that makes adaptations easy. So what I have found is regarding the research, regarding, I should say, the liminality of the space, the space as far as the stage is concerned. And once you look into the threshold, how far it is going to bloom, how far it is going to the next stage, in the next part of the process. Now we can't simply predict, because it can actually evolve into a new material as such. I'm not talking about fan fictions. I'm not talking about Nahum Tate who changed King Lear, or I'm not talking about any friendly adaptations made by later on writers. I'm talking about the possibility, as we have seen in multiple translations. For example, the idea called the retranslation hypothesis. Now, how far it has been successful means starting from source language to the target language. We call it as source to target. Or some people will call it as hot and cold translation. That is also possible. Now, but among these, what I have found is, from my own humble way of reading things, I have found that Shakespeare is no doubt one of the greatest, I should say, the source as such. Maybe followed by people like Jane Austen, people like Marquez, and maybe, of course, we have our own Rabindranath Tagore, and of course other Indian writers as well. But when it comes to adaptations, especially based on translation, I find quite that there is a clear margin between the first and the second. That is, Shakespeare is way ahead compared to other writers. So that way, the reason we all know, because of its universal appeal, because still we talk about old age homes and still we read King Lear. Now, these two things are going on. Still we read about the hungry politicians, and we still read about Macbeth. Now that, and still we read about how wives are generally looked at with suspicion or doubt by husbands. Now, that is still going on. So the Shakespeare is still alive in one form or the other. So that way, but one thing that I really got intrigued, I should say intrigued by the way that the presentation is going on, or maybe the additions made by the Master of Ceremonies, as well as like Shweta, as well as Needu Kumar. I'm sorry, Needu Kumari, etc. Like one interesting aspect which I would like to know, it's not a question as such, it's maybe part of the discussion. Now, certain cultures take certain text or adapt certain text. Now, why is it that certain societies, or maybe certain people of certain age, maybe 1920s, now why do they take up Merchant of Venice as the first part, like rather than looking up for text related to Romeo and Juliet, rather than King Lear? Now, so naturally, is there something that is working there, like the acceptability of the theme regarding the social milieu is concerned, something which really, that we need to find out how, why, and the reasons for which these texts are generally targeted for translation adaptations onto the stage. Maybe there can be some social reasons also. I don't know why, but it is too early. But if you go on thinking about it, we need to identify, why do certain colleges take up Hamlet? Now, do we have Hamlet around, or is it something forced by the teacher onto the students? Now, we don't know, but still, is there a reason for that? That's what I would say is something which really puzzles me. That's what my idea is. And again, we all know the assumptions are generally right, can be proven right. The reason is they become instant hits among masses, among people. So that's also there, So I think there are so many things which we need to think about. And thank you, Dr. Sankar Mazumder, for like opening up all those issues and raking up those good old ideas. The reason is, we have new syllabus and new forms of curriculum coming up in English. But whatever be the changes, in one way or the other, I should say there is a modest representation of the text of Shakespeare. And maybe you have, or maybe we all can say that there is a colonial tag working, or maybe it can also be like this, because there is always this kind of writers, creators, urge to to embark on identifying new themes in Shakespeare, because whenever new themes are discussed, suddenly we find that yes, when we talk about post-colonialism, we immediately find, yeah, it is there already in Tempest. Like that, we try to bring in some new ideas, or maybe even if it is psychoanalysis, yeah, Hamlet is there. So like that, any new forms of like theory or the concepts that emerge, suddenly we immediately find, there is always this openness, as I said, in the text to perform, as well as to I should say, the power of inclusivity in the text of Shakespeare. That makes the writer all the more relevant and important to us. So thank you, sir, for like giving us a wonderful and insightful lecture. So maybe if you have further questions from the audience, or maybe some observations, they are surely welcome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, I would like to add something. I'm personally happy because I actually follow sir and his writings and everything. Recently, I had the opportunity to listen to him, where he had talked about one alternative history regarding Barak Valley. And sir had written also on theater also, and so therefore I am very happy that sir has spoken today on such a unique topic that the audience or the listener had enjoyed. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Shweta.
May I speak? Good evening, Dr. Mazumdar.
Oh, sir,
Namaste. How are you doing? I'm great.
I'm doing fine, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Mazumdar, I was wondering when this Western performance art came to the Northeastern region particularly, and before that, there was some indigenous form of performance art, like as I grew up in Manipur, and I see the street dance and street performance, and they have very localized, and they belong to this very cultural type of things, right? And when the Westerners came and people started reading Shakespeare, other Christopher Marlowe, and other Western writers. And gradually, what happened? Universities opened, like Manipur University and DM College was there, and people started reading these books, and they started adaptation. But these adaptations were completely new, and that mixing up of the traditional indigenous form of art and the Western, that happened, a very miraculous influence on the artist. Because these Western performance, Shakespearean or Christopher Marlowe or Arthur Miller and all the other kinds, these were within the classroom. But when it went to the mass, they adapted something not completely. That you were talking of, that completely translation was possible, but it was very difficult. But what they did, they got the idea of performance, artist, and not only the writing as well as in the performance, and that tremendously influenced the local performance art culture there. I think you were working so actively in the performance art of especially the region, particularly Assam. Did you find any kind of things that how did that Western tradition that influenced the local and indigenous form of art performance, especially in the region that you are studying?
So there are these two things. First of all, I'm very thankful for your being here.
Thank
we
you,
are
sir.
such good friends for so many years now.
Yeah.
And I thank you for not only for listening but putting across this very interesting question, to which I would like to reply in this particular manner, sir, that that when Shakespearean texts were primarily introduced into the educational curricula by the colonial masters, so the first generation native intelligentsia, the first generation native intellectuals, which had the privilege of going to the foreign universities. I mean, foreign universities situated in India, like Hindu College.
Yeah.
Most of its departments were the teachers were from abroad.
Yeah.
It actually, especially in Bengal, in other parts of the subcontinent, it was the urge in the native intelligentsia, the native higher class, elite classes, to fashion themselves according to the norms of the Elizabethan culture. that has actually inspired them to read Shakespearean texts. And it is also almost a kind of a known fact for all of us that they used to look down upon the local performance traditions. One very interesting book which immediately comes to my mind is called the Parlor and the Street, Elite and Popular Culture in 19th Century Calcutta. The book is by Sumanto Banerjee, is a cultural historian of the Marxist variety. He writes that in colonial Kolkata, there was two Kolkatas. One was the black Kolkata, the black town, and another was the white. So the performance traditions, which are very popular in the black town areas, they were a strict no-no. And initially, when the colonizers introduced the British theatre or the Elizabethan theatre in the Indian subcontinent, for near about 30-40 years, Indians could not visit or the natives could not visit those theatre halls, except they were invited by some white men. But then when the first few natives, they went and saw these performances, gradually this performance tradition actually it caught up with the Indian, it caught the Indian imagination. And then from the last quarter of the 19th century, especially in West Bengal, in Kolkata, we will find that National Theatre is being set up. So National Theatre was a theatre which was run by the Indians, but most of the productions they will perform. Productions were also in Bengali language, but productions were performed after the Elizabethan proscenium style. The style and costumes were of the Elizabethan variety. This is one. But again, one very interesting and powerful exception was there in Bombay. When the Parsis took up, interestingly, Parsis has a very vibrant performative culture. When the Parsis took up Shakespeare, they almost adapted Shakespeare and changed Shakespeare so much that by the end of the performance, say of a Hamlet or of a Merchant of Venice or of a King Lear, it would be for a Shakespeare student, it would be very difficult to decipher which part of the performance was Shakespearean and which part of the performance was Parsi, because the Parsi theatre used to thrive with dance and musical aspects of it. I mean, as far as Northeast is concerned, your specific question, as far as the Northeastern scenario is concerned, as you have correctly mentioned that before the arrival of the Elizabethan theatre, in some parts of Northeast, there were a very vibrant performance cultures were there, which performance cultures kind of took the back seat with the arrival of this Elizabethan theatre, because the intelligentsia, the top rung of the native society, they thought that it was a kind of a refashioning, that if they can perform more in the Western tradition, the colonial tradition, it looks more fashionable. It is more with the spirit of the time.
That's true.
During the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s, a particular kind of a tradition which was taking its root across the subcontinent, also in Manipur, with legendary performers like Ratan Thiam and others. This is the roots theatre movement. The practitioners of roots theatre movement, what they tried to do is that they sometimes took up their plots from the Western playwrights and still perform it within the genre of the native performative traditions. This was a very hybridized kind of an experimentation. But of course, it has its own logic and it has its own beauty.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It's great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for the observation and suggestion. There is another question that is been put forward. I would just read it out. Is Shakespeare difficult to translate? Are the translations authentic? By Pushpa. Would you like to address, sir?
Yeah, I mean, in a very precise manner. Translation is difficult. No one can deny that, because all translations, because they are ultimately related to this particular notion of the original and the imitation. So all imitations, all translations for that particular matter, they are thought to be primarily a suspect. All works of translations are always compared against the original. So in that particular scenario, it has always a relatable disadvantage. This is one. And Shakespeare, of course, Shakespeare is one of the masters, and literal translations of Shakespeare is a very difficult exercise. But that does not mean that there should not be more translations. Translation should always be encouraged, and if possible, good works of translations should not always be compared and contrasted against the original, because it may have its own logic, it may have its own beauty. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the observation. Hope our participants must have received ideas on how Shakespearean translations have been carried off during different periods of time and across cultures and countries. And sir has more specified to the region, that is Assam. That was very interesting to know how, scholars from Assam, and most often what I have come to know regarding it, most of them were educated in Calcutta at that time, and coming back to Assam or to Guwahati, those performances, and Shakespeare was so popular in Calcutta during
if I may, I have already cited and talked about Lakshmanath Bejbarua. There is this Gunabhiram Borua who has written this play called Ram Navami Natok, the first Assamese play, not a translation, but a first authentic Assamese play. Gunabhiram Borua also, he was there in Kolkata during his studies, and in later life he again went back to Kolkata. So there was a very powerful connection between Assamese intellectuals of late 19th century and Calcutta's educational institutions and culture. Thank you. I just wanted to add this. Thank you. So sorry for intervention.
No, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as has been said, Shakespeare is so human, so to say, rather than bringing about the more recent dramatist or the plays, which take about specific areas or concerns. Shakespeare is more human and universal, so to say. And that's why people take up, or students generally, we take up his plays for performances in most of the colleges. Now, I believe I haven't received any other questions or observations. I believe this session to be complete and over by now. And Shweta, may I? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we conclude?
You can proceed.
Okay, can we conclude?
Like certificates are to be given by Ghanashyam sir. You can.
Yes, please.
Sir.
Please, Shweta, can you take over and ask for the same, or should I?
Please, ma'am, you proceed.
Okay. I would like to request now to Ghanshyam sir to make his observation or to put up his observation for today's session. Hello.
Hello, yes, Professor Ghanshyam sir is here. I think he is not. Please, Shweta ma'am, please just present the certificate. Just. I request.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, it's an honor and pleasure to be a part of iSPELL's activity, and that too, the Sunday Sahityak Satsang on all the Sundays. And it has become a kind of a flagship program of iSPELL to have Sunday Sahityak Satsang. This is not only a kind of a program wherein we are going to invite the speakers and to know about their concepts, their theories, and their research, and also what they feel about the particular topic. But at the same time, it gives us immense pleasure to make others also to understand various nuances and aspects of a particular theme and the topic. And it's always necessary not only to discuss the things, but also to come to a particular conclusion so that the fraternity can increase, and at the same time the fraternity can contribute for the development of English language and literature. And that's why Bacon is quite right in saying that reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. So this kind of a conference not only makes us ready, but at the same time, it encourages us to write and write more and write in a prolific way and write the concrete things. It should not be, as the technology says, copy and paste, but at the same time, it should be initiated by the mind and should be written with the help of the heart, and with the amalgamation of head and heart, it will definitely reach to the pinnacle. And iSPELL is doing that kind of an activity by its caption, facilitate to elevate. So we are not only facilitating ourselves, but at the same time, we are facilitating others also to facilitate others so that the fraternity can increase to a greater extent. So I really feel honored to be there today to listen to the wonderful lecture on Shakespeare. And always I say it is necessary for all of us to shake the fear of English language and literature, which is there in the minds and hearts of the people with the help of Shakespeare. So that's why I always call him, he is the person who has shaken the fear. So that's why Shakespeare is there. So thank you very much, sir, for doing the honors on the platform of iSPELL. Really, indeed, it's a pleasure listening to you on various aspects. So this certificate goes to Dr. Majumdar for doing the honors on the platform of iSPELL from Assam University, Silchar. Dipendu is also a good friend of mine, sir. So convey my regards to Dipendu too.
Oh, sure, sir. Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. For doing the honors on the platform of iSPELL, Dr. Murali Krishnan TR, who is a good friend of mine and also the joint secretary of iSPELL, and always there whenever we request him and whenever we want his services, he's always there. So for doing the honors on the platform of iSPELL, this certificate goes to Dr. Murali Krishnan.
Thank
Kindly
you, sir.
accept it, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. This certificate goes to Neetu Kumari Gupta for doing the honors on the platform of iSPELL as the Master of Ceremonies from Nagaon. Convey my regards to one of my friend who is there in Nagaon. So she's there, I think, Sharma. Yeah, Neeta Sharma. Convey my regards to Neeta Sharma too.
Definitely, sir. Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So thank you very much to all of you and for joining on the platform of iSPELL. Over to Neetu Kumari.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And here we conclude our session for today, Sunday Sahityik Satsang. Hope the today's topic has facilitated our understanding of stage performances of William Shakespeare in Assam. And to conclude, I would like to thank to the speaker, Dr. Shiv Shankar Majumdar, Department of English, Assam University, for enlightening us with such a, for such a lecture and about the performances and about the history of performances, and that was done in Assam from outside and here in Assam and other areas. Thank you so much, sir. I would also like to thank our chairperson, Dr. Murali Krishnan, sir, from Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, who has also put up his observations and suggestions on the given topic and translated forms of William Shakespeare's plays. I would also like to extend my thanks on the behalf of the forum to the General Secretary, iSPELL, Professor Ghansam, sir, who has given us this opportunity and empowering with such even on Sunday would have been an enlightening with such insightful ideas and topics that we take up every week. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks to President Anupama Bohra ma'am and our event coordinator Mrs. Shweta Surdas from Khairun Nesa Begum Women's College, Karimganj. Thank you so much for successfully organizing this event and coordinating with all the members and putting the things in the right place. Thank you so much, Shweta. And thanks to our IT expert, Pramod Dengle, sir, who has coordinated and put up this entire session in place. Thank you. Thank you so much. Here I declare the session to be complete and over. Thank you.